History of Russia. The history of Russia begins with that of the Eastern Slavs and the Finno-Ugric peoples. The state of Garðaríki, the realm of towns, which was centered in Novgorod and included the entire areas inhabited by Ilmen Slavs, Veps and Votes, was established by the Varangian chieftain Rurik in 862, the traditional beginning of Russian history. Kievan Rus, Kievskaya Rus, the first united East Slavic state, was founded by Rurik's successor, Oleg of Novgorod, Veshchy Oleg, in 882. The state adopted Christianity from the Byzantine Empire in 988, beginning the synthesis of Byzantine and Slavic cultures that defined Russian culture for the next millennium. Kievan Rus ultimately disintegrated as a state because of the Mongol invasion of Rus, монгольское нашествие на Русь, in 1237-1240. During that time, a number of regional magnates, in particular Novgorod and Pskov, fought to inherit the cultural and political legacy of Kievan Rus. After the 13th century, Moscow came to dominate the former cultural center. By the 18th century, the Grand Duchy of Moscow, Великое княжество Московское, had become the huge Russian Empire, Российская империя, stretching from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth eastward to the Pacific Ocean. Expansion in the western direction sharpened Russia's awareness of its separation from much of the rest of Europe and shattered the isolation in which the initial stages of expansion had occurred. Successive regimes of the 19th century responded to such pressures with a combination of half-hearted reform and repression. Russian serfdom, крепостное право, was abolished in 1961, but its abolition was achieved on terms unfavorable to the peasants and served to increase revolutionary pressures. Between the abolition of serfdom and the beginning of World War I in 1914, the Stolypin reforms, Stolypinские реформы, the Constitution of 1906, and State Duma, Государственная Дума, introduced notable changes to the economy and politics of Russia, but the Tsars were still not willing to relinquish autocratic rule or share their power. The Russian Revolution in 1917 was triggered by a combination of economic breakdown, war weariness, and discontent with the autocratic system of government, and it first brought a coalition of liberals and moderate socialists to power, but their failed policies led to seizure of power by the communist Bolsheviks, коммунисты, большевики, on 25 October. Between 1922 and 1991, the history of Russia is essentially the history of the Soviet Union, Советский Союз, effectively an ideologically based state which was roughly conterminous with the Russian Empire before the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, Брест-Литовский мирный договор. The approach to the building of socialism, however, varied over different periods in Soviet history, from the mixed economy and diverse society and culture of the 1920s to the common economy and repressions of the Iosif Stalin era to the era of stagnation in the 1980s. From its first years, government in the Soviet Union was based on the one-party rule of the communists, as the Bolsheviks called themselves. beginning in March 1918. However, by the late 1980s, with the weaknesses of its economic and political structures becoming acute, the communist leaders embarked on major reforms which led to the fall of the Soviet Union. The history of the Russian Federation, Российская Федерация, is brief, starting from the late 1991. Russia was recognized as the legal successor to the Soviet Union on the international stage. However, Russia has lost its superpower status as it faced serious challenges in its efforts to forge a new post-Soviet political and economic system. Scrapping the socialist central planning and state ownership of property of the Soviet era, Russia attempted to build an economy with elements of market capitalism, with often painful results. Even today, Russia shares many continuities of political culture and social structure with its Tsarist and Soviet past. History of Russia.
From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia.
The sound file and all text in the article are licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0 Unported license, available at creativecommons.org/licenses/by-IFEN-SA/3.0.